Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something unsettling but important. Have you ever stood beside someone, smiled with them, shared memories, even trusted them, only to later realize they were the very reason you felt like you were drowning inside? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear could spare you from years of heartache. This isn't just a speech, it's a wake-up call. 3 red flags. 3 warnings. 3 dark signs that will reveal if the person beside you is not just toxic, but dangerous. And once you recognize them, you'll never look at them the same way again. They don't walk into your life looking like villains. No, darkness rarely introduces itself. It doesn't need to. It knows how to wait, how to observe, how to reflect what you want most to see. The most dangerous person in a room is often the one who seems the kindest, the most thoughtful, the most generous. They look into your eyes, nod at the right moments, remember your favorite things, your struggles, your story. But it's not because they care. It's because they're studying you. You think you've met someone who finally understands you. You feel heard, seen, even safe. And that's what they want. Because feeling safe makes you drop your guard. Trust opens the door. And once you let them in, they begin rearranging the furniture of your mind without you even noticing. They don't force power from you. They make you hand it over. Here's where it gets darker. They begin to plant small seeds. Subtle ones. A tiny comment, a look, a pause when you needed encouragement. A remark that makes you wonder if you're too much or not enough. They hide criticism inside compliments. They twist pieces of your truth just enough that it still sounds like you, but it belongs to them now. You start changing, adjusting, shaving down the parts of you they disapprove of, and highlighting the ones they like. Not because they asked, but because you want their approval. You want harmony. You want them to stay. Slowly, without shouting or anger, they have you exactly where they want you. They don't need to yell. They don't need to rage. That would break the illusion. Instead, they smile, they hug, they say things like, "You know, I'm just trying to help." They say, "You're being too sensitive," or "You're reading too much into this." And you believe them, because they've spent time building your trust, because they wear kindness like a second skin. But that kindness, it's empty. It's not coming from care. It's part of the act. And the more you cheer it on, the more you fuel the very thing that's draining you. Every time your gut tells you something's off, they already have a response ready, already making you doubt yourself. You're just being paranoid. You're imagining things. You're just hard to love. So you try harder. You explain yourself more. You apologize for what you feel. And they sit there, calm, affectionate, as if they're the one holding you together. But in reality, they're the one pulling you apart. They make you doubt your own instincts, your own experiences. That's how the charming manipulator works. Not by shouting, but by softly wiping away who you are. Not with cruelty, but with comfort. Not with violence, but with fake warmth. And you defend them. You do. Because when they're good, they're perfect. And that's the hook. You keep chasing that version of them, the one from the beginning, the one who listened, who laughed under the stars. But that person was never real. That was a mask they wore long enough to earn your loyalty. Now you're holding onto a memory of someone who never really existed. And that's the hardest truth to face. Because to walk away, you have to admit that none of it was real. That what felt like connection was crafted. That the love you believed in was manipulation. That your memories were staged. And your heart will resist that. Because you loved. You gave your whole heart honestly. You offered your most fragile self. your vulnerability. But they didn't love you. They used your light to hide their own darkness. And when they're done using it, they either toss you aside or tear you down from within. Not every kind word comes from a good place. Not every sweet act is done in love. Some people learn your hopes just to destroy them. They memorize your weaknesses so they can use them. They walk beside you not to lift you, but to mirror you until you don't know where you end and they begin. If you find yourself always doubting your reality, your worth, your mind, stop looking in the mirror. Start looking at who's standing beside you. Because no charm can forever hide true motives. And when someone constantly makes you question yourself but never reflects on their own behavior, that isn't a bond. It's control. And the longer you stay, the quieter your voice becomes. Until one day, you wake up and realize you've been living someone else's story, not your own. And that silence you feel, that's not peace. That's the loss of your own presence. They don't raise their voice. They don't have to. Control doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it's just a look, a sigh, a pause. They don't get angry. They look disappointed. And somehow, that's worse. Because somewhere along the line, you started believing that their approval was your air. Their smile, your validation. And so begins the guilt. They say things like, "I thought you were different," or, "I guess I can't count on you after all." What they really mean is, "You owe me. Your freedom is selfish. Your choices should serve me." They won't say it directly. They're too clever for that. They won't attack you. They'll frame it in a way that makes you turn on yourself. They make your needs feel like betrayal. Your boundaries feel like rejection. And soon, you're apologizing for wanting space, for asking for time. You hold back your dreams to avoid upsetting them. You make yourself smaller, not because they asked, but because their silence demands it. Their mood becomes the weather of your day. If they're upset, it must be your fault. If they're cold, you must have failed. So you try harder. You over-explain. You give more. And the more you give, the more they take. They don't have to isolate you. You do it for them. You stop talking to others. You protect their image, while they tear down yours. Because they've convinced you that your pain is a fair price to keep them from leaving. They've made you think if you just love them more, they'll change. If you're more patient, they'll see. But they already see. They see how loyal you are. They see your need for peace. And they use it. This isn't love. Love doesn't punish. Love doesn't guilt you into silence. Love doesn't make your heart ache every time you try to express your truth. Love doesn't twist your kindness into a cage. There's a method to their behavior. They track not their wrongs, but your reactions. They'll say, "I never said that," when you know they did. Or, "You're just making me out to be the bad guy." And you begin to question your memory, your version of things, even your own motives. They flip the conversation until you're the one defending yourself. You came to them with a concern, and now you're defending your character. The more guilt you carry, the more power they hold. You stop trusting yourself. You look to them for reassurance, even when they're the ones causing your confusion. It's not accidental. It's a strategy. They don't want equality. They want control. They don't want real closeness. They want obedience. You'll notice they only soften when they sense they're losing grip. They become gentle when you start to pull away, just long enough to pull you back in. They cry, they promise, they say, "I just didn't know how to show it." And for a moment, you believe them, because you're good-hearted, because you want to believe. and that's what they count on. But guilt isn't love, and fear isn't loyalty. If you're constantly walking on eggshells, constantly shrinking yourself to avoid upsetting them, ask yourself, who are you becoming? Who do you have to be just to be tolerated? Your life is not a stage for someone else's comfort. Your worth isn't measured by how well you avoid stirring someone else's insecurities. You are not responsible for healing someone who refuses to confront their own wounds. When someone turns your love into a chain, when they make you feel like saying no is unkind, that's not love. That's manipulation. And the longer you stay, the more you forget what it means to feel free. At first, it's subtle. You stop speaking your truth. You hide your needs. You're not just physically tired. You're spiritually drained. Like you're walking through life in someone else's shadow. You start asking for permission to be yourself. And that is the real betrayal. Not what they did to you, but what they made you do to yourself. When their voice becomes your inner critic. When their disapproval echoes louder than your own truth. That is when you know it's time to let go. Our idea of worth may be shaped by others, but there's still a voice within you, a whisper, a spark that quietly says something isn't right. That voice, that's the real you, the version of you that existed before the guilt, before the mind games, before the shame took root. You don't owe anyone your silence, not to keep the peace, not to hold on to love. Real love doesn't come with demands that break your spirit. Real love doesn't require you to lose yourself so someone else can stay comfortable. If someone needs you to shrink just so they can feel bigger, then they were never truly beside you. They were standing over you. And you deserve more than that. You always have. You meet their eyes and pause for a second. You can't explain why, but something is off. Something you expected to find there. Warmth, depth, some flicker of understanding. It's just not there. You share your joy, and their reaction is flat. You share your pain, and their face stays cold, unreadable. That isn't indifference. It's hollowness. You're standing in front of someone who knows how to act concerned, but doesn't feel it deep down. They've learned how to mimic kindness, how to say what's expected, how to reach out just like a caring person might. But inside, they are empty. Some people don't feel the way you do, not because they've been hurt or are protecting themselves, but because empathy just doesn't live inside them. When you bleed, they see a problem. When you cry, they see weakness. When you speak your truth, they see an opportunity to twist it, to use it, to turn it into something for their benefit. And still, you stay. Because sometimes the mask slips. Sometimes they're sweet, attentive, engaged. They know how to read you, how to shape themselves into what you want, and that's what makes them truly dangerous. You start to question yourself. Maybe they're just tired. Maybe their past was hard. Maybe they were never taught how to love. You create reasons. You carry their emotional burdens. You offer your patience, your trust, your explanations. But nothing gets through, because they're not blocked. They're hollow. It's not that they can't hear you crying. It's that they don't care. They've simply learned how to fake it. You speak from your heart, and their reply feels empty, scripted, like they're reciting lines from a role they don't believe in. They know how sympathy is supposed to look, but they don't have the feeling that backs it up. You start to notice it in the way they speak. The pause before they respond, as if they're figuring out what a normal person would say. As if empathy is a foreign language they've memorized, but never truly understood. And the more you open up, the more you realize they're unmoved. Not on the surface, not deep down. They don't apologize out of remorse. They apologize to regain control. They say sorry not because they mean it, but because they want you calm, obedient, back under their spell. Look closer. Their words sound perfect, but their eyes, they don't match. There's no real regret in them, only calculation. They're not sorry they hurt you. They're sorry you noticed. You expect others to care. You hope your pain might stir something in them. But it doesn't. You want to believe everyone has a heart, that if you just love them enough, they'll remember how to feel. But some people didn't forget. They never knew how. You're not awakening anything inside them. You're giving them the key to your soul. They walk through every door you open with one goal, to take. When you finally pull away, when you say, "This hurts," they brush it off. Suddenly, you're the issue. You're too sensitive. You're imagining things. They don't honor your reality. They erase it. Not with rage, but with indifference. That cold, chilling lack of empathy that says your pain means nothing to them. It's not that they missed it. It's that they don't care. And now, you start to feel invisible. You begin to wonder if your feelings are just too much. But they're not. Your feelings aren't the problem. Their emptiness is. Their inability to connect, to soften, to hold space for your humanity. That's the real issue. And yet, they keep drawing from you. They take your laughter, your love, your light. But when it's time for them to offer something meaningful, something heartfelt, they disappear. They go quiet. Not because they're overwhelmed, but because they were never truly there. They memorized your emotions, not to protect, but to control. They learn where you're most tender, not to comfort, but to push. And when you're at your most vulnerable, when you most need kindness, they vanish. Or worse, they blame you. And you feel alone. But it's not just any loneliness. It's the kind that cuts deep. The kind that comes from sitting beside someone who's there in body but missing in spirit. A shell next to you. A faint echo of connection, but no substance. Your heart starts to fade. You start to retreat, not just from them, but from your own self. You stop feeling everything fully. You go numb, not because you've lost the ability to feel, but because you've been trying to carry the emotional weight for both of you. And that's not sustainable. That's not love. That's emotional labor for someone who will never give it back. And the scariest truth of all is this: not everyone wants to be healed. Not everyone wants to grow. Some would rather hold on to control than open up to connection. Some would choose power over presence. And when you keep staying, keep giving, keep hoping, they don't become more human. You become more hollow. You begin to reflect their emptiness. You start forgetting what real love even feels like. But there is something more. There's a world outside this one. A world where someone really sees you. Where their gaze meets yours and holds meaning. Where their actions match their words. Where empathy isn't a trick. It's genuine. You weren't born to sit across from someone with no soul. You weren't made to be used up. There is depth in you, and you deserve someone who meets you there. Sometimes, the devil doesn't look like a monster. He looks like everything you ever dreamed of. A smile, a kind word, a safe place. But your spirit, your intuition, it knows. It always knows. Listen to it. Because the day you stop explaining yourself, the day you stop defending their cruelty, is the day you begin to breathe freely again. Thank you.